They say becoming a mother changes everything. I used to think that meant sleepless nights and lullabies. But for me, it meant standing face to face with betrayal, not from a stranger but from the woman who raised me. I thought I knew where my limits were, until the day my own mother tried to take my son away. This is the story of how I stopped being a daughter and became a protector. My name is Nina, I'm 32 years old, and I live in a quiet coastal town in Maine, where fog rolls in early and the smell of fresh bread from Maple Street Bakery wraps around every morning like a blanket. Just 3 weeks ago, I gave birth to my first child, a beautiful baby boy named Caleb. When I heard his first cry in the delivery room, it felt like the whole world held its breath. But motherhood, as magical as it is, didn't begin the way I dreamed. Because from the very moment I got pregnant, the person I hoped would celebrate the most, my mother, was the first to make me cry. Her name is Evelyn, a woman with piercing eyes and a reputation for elegance and order. But to me, she's never been soft. Never been someone I could lean on. Even as a child, I always knew my place in her world, behind my younger sister Samantha, who's now 27. Samantha was the golden child. Graceful, always smiling at the right time, saying the perfect things and most importantly, doing exactly what Evelyn expected. I, on the other hand, was the difficult one. The daughter who chose to work in community mental health instead of following the family path in finance, and who married for love instead of waiting to establish herself first. Samantha got engaged earlier this year, and her wedding is scheduled for December. By then I just have given birth. To my mother, this was not just bad timing, it was a scandal. I'll never forget that humid July afternoon. Evelyn showed up at my front porch carrying a small box of cinnamon walnut cookies, my favorite as a child, wearing a fake smile like it was perfume. She acted like she came with good news. But the second her eyes landed on my belly, the glow disappeared. She took one look inside. "Nina, we need to talk." She placed her teacup on the table, the porcelain clinking louder than it should have. "You know Samantha's planning her wedding. You having a baby right before it, it's just not appropriate." I stared at her stunned. "What are you saying, Mom?" She leaned forward, her voice low and sharp. "People will only care about you and the baby. And Samantha, she only gets one wedding day. Could you keep things quiet? Maybe wait to announce the birth until after." For a few seconds I couldn't breathe. "You want me to hide my son?" I asked. "Like he's something shameful?" She didn't respond at first, just stared like she was disappointed I didn't see her twisted logic. Then came the words I'd never forget. "It's not about you. It's about the family. About Samantha." I met her eyes. "Samantha didn't even invite me to the bridal shower. Why should I dim my joy for someone who erased me?" Evelyn stood, picked up the cookie box and left her tea untouched. "I only want what's best. If you can't see that, there's nothing more to say. I only want what's best for both of you. If you can't see that, I don't know what else to say." The door clicked shut behind my mother, but something inside me broke open. For the first time, there was no doubt, Evelyn had never been on my side. Not really. To her, I had always been the flawed first draft of a daughter, while Samantha was the polished final version. 3 weeks later, when Caleb was born, Evelyn wasn't at the hospital. Instead, she posted a photo online, standing behind Samantha in a shimmering boutique, both of them laughing over a wedding dress. The caption read, "The kind of joy only a mother and daughter can share." I held Caleb close that evening in the hospital, the warm weight of him on my chest, and whispered, "I don't need her here. I have you. And I'll be everything for you that she never was for me." Not a single message came. No call. No knock at the door. Nothing from my mother. The silence was jarring at first, after years of chasing crumbs of affection, but strangely peaceful. Like clearing the static from a radio and finally hearing a true voice, mine. Miles, my husband, stayed steady through it all. Each night, while I rocked Caleb to sleep in the soft autumn glow filtering through the nursery window, he'd wrap his arms around me and say, "You're doing the right thing. Some people use family as a leash. You don't owe her anything." Caleb was born on a late September afternoon. The maples outside our hospital room blazed with orange and red, the sky soft and clear. His first cry filled the room, and for a moment the world seemed to stop. Miles wept quietly, holding my hand. But the woman who raised me, the one who should have been there, had sent no word. Later, Miles confessed he had called her during the delivery. She answered, he said. But she told me she was too busy. She was at Samantha's cake tasting. Then she hung up. I didn't respond. I just turned my head toward Caleb, nestled against me, his tiny breath warm on my skin. 3 days after we brought him home, I found an envelope on our doormat. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No greeting, no congratulations, just one sentence. Do not bring Caleb to the wedding. And please keep the birth private until it's over. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Miles didn't hesitate. He crushed the paper in his fist, tossed it into the trash. I know you want to honor what your dad asked of you, he said gently. But when does that stop giving her power over you? I sat quietly, his words echoing the one memory I couldn't let go of. My father, frail in his hospital bed, whispering, Evelyn's not easy, but I know you'll keep us together. And I had tried. But you can't hold together something that was broken from the beginning. A week later, my phone buzzed with a message from my Aunt Caroline, Evelyn's older sister. Someone who never interfered. Nina, is it true? Your mom said you don't want to keep the baby. She said you're looking to give him up. I froze. I had never said that. Not once. Not even in my worst moments. Something in me began to unravel. What was my mother telling people, and why? Is that true? My Aunt Caroline had asked, her voice tight with concern. I stood frozen in the middle of Caleb's nursery. I had never said such a thing. I had never even thought it. My hands trembled as I immediately called her back, my voice barely holding together. Where did you hear that, Aunt Caroline? There was a pause. Your mother told me. She said you're overwhelmed, that you're struggling. She said you've been talking about giving the baby up. She told me not to worry because she was going to handle it. I felt the blood drain from my face. The crib beside me blurred as sharp panic cut through my thoughts. Evelyn had said that? I always knew she could be cold, even manipulative. But this? To lie about me wanting to abandon my child, my own son, for what? Appearances? Samantha's big day? I hung up and walked into the living room, my legs like lead. Miles was on the couch folding laundry, but he sat up immediately when he saw my face. I told him everything. The call. The lie. The way my mother was twisting my words. He went pale. What do you think she's trying to do, Nina? His voice was tight. This isn't just gossip. She could be planning something. I nodded slowly. I think she already has. And that thought, the possibility that my own mother might be plotting behind my back, sent a wave of nausea through me. It wasn't just emotional betrayal anymore. This was about Caleb. The baby I had carried, birthed, and loved every second since. The child she was willing to erase if it meant protecting Samantha's spotlight. I never imagined the day would come when I'd have to guard my son from his own grandmother. But I could feel it in my bones. Something was deeply wrong. Later that night, while nursing Caleb, my phone buzzed beside me on the table. Evelyn's name flashed across the screen. I let it ring, then silenced it. A moment later, it lit up again, this time a string of texts. Nina, answer. It's urgent. It's about Caleb. Please. A chill ran down my spine. Miles walked in just then and took one look at my face. What is it? I handed him the phone. He read the messages, jaw tightening. Should I call her back? I nodded once. A minute later, I watched as he listened silently, then slowly handed me the phone. She says she needs to talk to you directly. I took it with shaking fingers. This is Nina. There was a pause, then a long trembling breath. You need to know before someone else tells you. You might get a call from an adoption agency. My heart stopped. I made a mistake, Evelyn whispered. I contacted a private agency. I told them you and Miles weren't fit, said you had problems. I forged your signature on the documents. But they found out. They're reporting it to the authorities. I sank into the nearest chair, clutching Caleb's blanket like a lifeline. You tried to give away my son? It's not what it sounds like, she rushed. I thought it was the best solution for everyone. For Samantha. I hung up before she could finish. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just held Caleb tighter. And I knew this was war. I ended the call without another word. No shouting. No pleading. Just silence. I held Caleb close to my chest, rocking him gently while my mind raced to make sense of what I just heard. A few hours later, the phone rang again, this time from a number I didn't recognize. I answered hesitantly. "Mrs. Tanner?" a calm voice asked. "My name is Denise Caldwell. I'm a legal representative from the Sewin Family Placement Agency. I'm calling to inform you that an adoption application involving your son, Caleb Tanner, has been suspended immediately following the discovery of serious irregularities." I felt my stomach drop. Miles was already standing beside me. Denise continued gently. "We uncovered forged documents, medical records, consent forms, personal declarations, all of which were falsely submitted under your and your husband's names. We've confirmed they were not authored or signed by either of you. We are deeply sorry for the distress this has caused. We've reported the matter to the district authorities." Miles reached for my hand and held it tightly, though his other hand was clenched into a fist. I could see the effort he was making to stay calm. We had once dismissed Evelyn's behavior as favoritism, or even emotional cruelty, but this was something far beyond. She had crossed a line that couldn't be walked back. That night, after putting Caleb to sleep, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote out everything. Every detail I could remember. The messages, the forged documents, the confession. We called Miles's uncle, who had been our family's attorney for years. The next morning, just before sunrise, we sat in his office across a heavy wooden desk. His name was Thomas Greer, a composed man in his early 60s with silver-framed glasses and a reputation for taking no shortcuts. After reviewing the situation, he removed his glasses, folded his hands, and said with solemn clarity, "Nina, Miles, I need to be honest with you. What Evelyn did. This isn't a misunderstanding or even a civil dispute. It falls under criminal charges, forgery of legal documents, fraud, and a direct violation of your parental rights." I took a slow breath. My heart was still heavy, but the decision had already formed in my chest like armor. "I want to file a civil suit," I said, "and I want to pursue financial restitution. For the last 2 years I've been paying her rent, covering her prescriptions, utilities, everything. Over $18,000. Miles added, "And we won't object to any criminal charges the authorities pursue. We'll cooperate fully." Thomas gave a slow nod. "I'll represent you, but I want to be clear, this will be a public process. When word gets out, people may not understand. They'll say you're turning on your mother." I met his gaze without wavering. "Let them talk. I've lived my whole life trying to be the daughter she wanted. But now, I'm Caleb's mother. And I'm not letting anyone, even her, hurt him. I made a promise to myself that day. Caleb would never grow up in a family where love was used as leverage, where affection came with conditions and manipulation wore the mask of loyalty." By noon, our lawsuit was officially filed. Not long after, the York County Sheriff's Department publicly announced the criminal charges against my mother, Evelyn Tanner, for document forgery, false representation in an attempted illegal adoption, and intentional violation of lawful parental custody. I listened to the local radio as the news broke. There was no shock left in me. No victory. Just silence. The kind of silence that settles in when you know a door has closed, and that you were the one who locked it. A few days later, Evelyn was placed under house supervision pending formal investigation. Then came the letters. Not emails. Not texts. But folded pieces of paper delivered directly to our mailbox, each one in her tight, looping handwriting. I could tell she hadn't mailed them. She was clearly sending someone else to drop them off. Maybe one of Samantha's friends. Each note rambled, guilt-laced and filled with phrases like, "I panicked," and "You always overreact," or, "This is hurting your sister more than you know." But the last letter hit differently. I remember every word. "You promised your father you'd take care of me. Is this what he would have wanted? Is this how you honor his memory?" I folded it and placed it in a plain brown box with the others. I didn't burn them. I didn't shred them. But I didn't write back either. Miles and I sat down later that week and submitted our supporting documentation to the county prosecutor's office. We agreed together that if the case went to trial, we would testify. A few days later, after reviewing all the paperwork in Evelyn's recorded confession, the prosecutor's assistant called to tell us the likely outcome. If no out-of-court agreement was reached, my mother could face up to 5 years probation, a steep financial penalty, and mandatory psychological counseling in a supervised rehabilitation program. I called Aunt Caroline, my mother's older sister, to inform her. Her voice cracked with weariness. "Nina, I know this is serious, but are you sure you want to go through with this? With your own mother?" Before I could answer, Miles leaned closer to the speakerphone. His voice was quiet, calm. "No one pushed Evelyn into this. She walked herself right into it. And Nina's just refusing to carry the damage anymore." For once I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. For the first time in my life, I understood something I wish my father had taught me when he was alive. Protecting your family sometimes means cutting off the people who endanger it. Since her house arrest, the letters stopped, but the emails started. No name, just a cryptic sender address I instantly recognized. The subject lines were always the same theme. "I'm sorry. You promised. Please just talk to me." But the fourth one struck something deep. "Nina, your father believed you could hold this family together. He said you were the only one strong enough. Don't let them turn you cold. Don't take this to court. Forgive me. Please." I sat staring at the screen. It felt like someone had torn open an old wound I had long scarred over. I had bent myself into shapes to be the daughter he believed in. I'd silenced my pain, swallowed favoritism, tolerated erasure, because he had once said I was the glue. But now I knew. I wasn't built to be glue. I was built to protect my son. But now my father's belief, the one that once anchored me, was being used not as a reminder of love, but as a weapon. A way to silence me, to excuse Evelyn's actions, to erase everything she had done. I printed the email, folded it neatly, and placed it into our lawsuit file. It wasn't legal evidence, but it was personal proof. Proof of why I wouldn't back down. 3 days later, I opened the front door to the last person I wanted to see, Samantha. No call, no text, no knock. Just there. She was clutching a rolled-up invoice, her cheeks flushed and jaw set like she'd been rehearsing her speech the whole way over. I was rocking Caleb in the living room while Miles answered the door, but Samantha's voice carried through the house like a freight train. "Have you ruined enough lives yet?" she snapped. "All because you wanted the attention. Now what? Mom's broke and my wedding's in shambles." Miles remained calm, his voice level. "Samantha, now's not the time." But she pushed past him slightly, waving the paper in the air. "Do you know how much Mom already paid? For the florist, the venue, the photographer? I had a dress, invitations, deposits. And now? It's all being canceled because of you. Because you can't let anyone else have the spotlight." I stepped into view, Caleb snug in my arms. "This isn't about a spotlight," I said evenly. "It's about protecting my child. Your mother tried to erase him, literally. She forged documents to put him up for adoption behind our backs. And you're worried about table linens." She stared at me, stunned for half a second before scoffing. "You're so dramatic. Always the martyr. Always needing a cause to fight. Maybe if you weren't so sensitive, none of this would have happened." I held her gaze. Sensitive? Maybe. But if I hadn't caught what she was doing, my son might be in the arms of strangers right now. "This isn't about your wedding, Samantha. This is about Caleb. And Evelyn did this to herself. I'm just refusing to cover for her anymore." Her mouth tightened, her hand still holding the invoice like it proved something. But when I turned and walked back into the house, Miles quietly closed the door behind me. She banged on it a few more times, then left. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just looked down at Caleb's peaceful face and kissed his forehead. Later that afternoon, our lawyer, Mr. Greer, called with an update. The lawsuit had been accepted by the court. The first hearing was scheduled in a little over 4 weeks. Miles and I would both be called to testify in the criminal proceedings as well. I sat down to review the case documents again when my phone buzzed with another email. The sender was obvious. Evelyn. This one said, "Nina, I know you're angry. But you once told me, I will never abandon you. I know you're not like me. Please don't do this." I didn't reply. I used to be the daughter who always forgave, always came back after every emotional wound. But now I was a mother. And Caleb came first. The first mediation session took place on a cold Wednesday morning in a side room at the York County Courthouse. Miles sat beside me, steady and quiet. Across from us sat Evelyn, stiff, pale, and avoiding my eyes with her attorney. The silence between us was deeper than any courtroom could hold. And I knew no matter what happened next, the woman across from me was no longer just my mother. She was someone I had to protect my son from. From the moment Evelyn walked into the mediation room, she didn't once look at me. Her gaze stayed fixed on the floor, her posture rigid, but I noticed the way her hands trembled, how her eyes were rimmed in red, and how her lips pressed together like she was trying to hold something back. Mr. Greer began with professionalism. His voice was calm, stating clearly that we were open to resolving the civil lawsuit if Evelyn accepted full responsibility and signed a legal agreement to cease any future actions that could threaten our family's safety or privacy. For a brief moment it seemed like we were moving toward closure, until her lawyer opened his mouth. He had barely spoken a full sentence when Evelyn suddenly pushed back her chair. The legs screeched across the tile floor. Her voice cut through the air, high and sharp, like something had finally snapped. "Nina, do you even have a heart?" she cried. "I made a mistake, I admitted it. But why do you want me labeled a criminal? You want to see your own mother behind bars? Is that what this is about? Because Samantha's wedding is more important than your baby? Because I showed her more love than I ever showed you?" The room fell silent. I clenched my hands in my lap. Miles shifted beside me, ready to stand, but I placed a hand on his knee. "Not yet." I held Evelyn's gaze for the first time since we walked in, and maybe that silence, the refusal to yell back, hurt more than anything I could have said. But she wasn't finished. "I gave up everything for you. I raised you, clothed you, fed you, and now you're trying to destroy me. You're taking my money, dragging my name through the mud, turning this town against me." The judge finally called for an end to the session. It had lasted just 17 minutes. No agreement. No apology. Just a record of failure. 3 days later I got a call from Uncle Warren, Evelyn's younger brother. "You're really going to do this?" he asked, voice dripping with disapproval. "She's your mother, Nina. You think she's strong enough to survive her own daughter taking her to court?" I closed my eyes, tried to breathe. "Uncle Warren, this isn't about survival. It's about accountability. She didn't make a parenting mistake. She committed a crime. She tried to take my child using forged documents. This isn't just personal. It's legal." He snapped. "Where did you learn to be so heartless? Your father would be ashamed." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply said, "If Dad were still alive, none of this would have happened." Then I ended the call. My throat burned. Miles came over and gently touched my shoulder. No words needed. But the quiet didn't last. That Saturday night Samantha showed up again. Only this time she brought backup. She stood in our front yard with 2 friends beside her, arms crossed, her voice theatrical and loud enough for the whole block to hear. "Open the door, Nina. Or are you too scared to face what you've done? Are you hiding in there, Nina? Too scared to face me?" Samantha's voice rang out like a fire alarm across our quiet street. "Because of you, Mom almost got arrested. You ruined my wedding. Do you have any idea how much I had to cut? The band, the food, even the flowers. I was rocking Caleb in his nursery when it started." Miles had just stepped into the kitchen to check on the soup when he heard the commotion and immediately rushed out to the porch. "Samantha, leave," he said, his tone cold but measured. "This is private property." She barked a laugh. "Private property? Are you kidding me? You think this place was paid for with your money? This was Mom's investment. And now she's bankrupt because of your little vendetta." Her shouts echoed through the neighborhood. I could see curtains twitching across the street as neighbors peeked through blinds. Caleb woke in my arms, wailing in distress, and my heart twisted. That was it. I picked up my phone and called the police. 12 minutes later, 2 officers arrived, lights flashing but sirens off. They calmly instructed Samantha and her friends to leave the premises immediately. But as she walked toward the cruiser, she turned one last time, her face twisted with fury. "Just remember this, Nina. No one's on your side. No one." I didn't respond. I just held Caleb close and whispered, "You have me, baby. Even if no one else stands with us, I always will." The next morning I sat in Mr. Greer's office again, this time to file for a restraining order against Samantha. I had been patient. I had tried to keep things civil. But after what my mother had done, And now this, I wouldn't take chances. Not with Caleb's safety. The final court hearing came on a cold, mist-covered morning in York County Courthouse. I sat in the plaintiff's section, Miles quietly holding my hand. Caleb stayed with Miles's mother, far away from the courtroom and the shadows it carried. After a full review of the evidence, the judge rendered the decision. Evelyn Tanner was found guilty of document forgery, falsifying legal information to obstruct parental custody, and attempted illegal placement of a minor. But due to her cooperation and lack of prior criminal record, she avoided jail time. Her sentence: 2 years probation, a $25,000 fine, 100 hours of community service, and 1 year of supervised psychological counseling. There was no celebration, no victory dance, just a quiet exhale. 3 weeks later, the civil case concluded as well. Mr. Greer called to confirm that the court approved our restitution request. Evelyn was ordered to repay $18,000, the money I had spent supporting her after Dad died. Miles and I immediately transferred the entire amount into a college savings account for Caleb. That same week, we started boxing up our lives. Our home in the Maple Hollow neighborhood had been our first sanctuary. But after everything, Evelyn's betrayal, Samantha's intrusion, the gossiping neighbors, we knew it was time. Time to find peace somewhere new. We found a place where Evelyn and Samantha could no longer reach us, emotionally or physically. Somewhere their shadows didn't stretch. I changed my phone number, closed down all my old social media accounts. I kept in touch with only a small circle of people I truly trusted. To my surprise, Miles's family, especially his mother Elaine, became the steady warmth I hadn't known I was missing. Every Friday, she'd show up with a basket of butter cookies or fresh apples, just to hold Caleb and check in. She never asked about the past, never pushed. She understood that peace was the most generous gift someone could give. As for Samantha, after the restraining order was enforced, she disappeared from our lives entirely. But one day, while scrolling through a news app, I stumbled across a viral photo of her wedding. A polished shot of her in a lace gown captioned, "Finally found the family I was meant to have." In the comments, someone asked, "Didn't see your mom in the pictures, was she there?" Samantha replied, "I have no relationship with her. We've been estranged for years due to her unacceptable choices." I wasn't surprised. Under pressure from her new in-laws, wealthy and highly visible, Samantha did what she always did: protect her image. And Evelyn? She had finally lost everything: her public status, her savings, and even the daughter she placed on a pedestal for decades. A few weeks later, a former neighbor emailed me a photo. Evelyn, hair streaked with gray and posture slumped, was sweeping leaves at a public park in Kittery as part of her community service. Her face looked hollow, as if time had collapsed around her. The neighbor asked, "How do you feel seeing your mother like this?" I didn't respond, not because I didn't feel anything, but because I had learned something vital. Feeling sorry for the wrong person is just another way to betray yourself. That night, as rain tapped gently on the roof and the world outside dimmed, I sat in Caleb's nursery rocking him to sleep, his tiny body warm against my chest. "You don't need to know what I lost," I whispered into his soft hair. "You only need to know that everything I do is for you." I no longer craved Evelyn's approval. I didn't expect Samantha to change. All I needed was this: my child, my future. I used to believe that honoring my father's dying wish, to keep the family together, was sacred. But motherhood taught me a harder truth. Sometimes the only way to protect your child is to break the legacy that harmed you. I didn't lose a family. I left behind an illusion, and in its place I built a real home. Now I don't live to please anyone. I live to love, to protect, and to lead my son forward on my terms. What do you think about Nina's choice? Was she protecting her son, or being too harsh? Let us know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it.